Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Ali. I'm a junior doctor working in Cambridge, and in this episode of Medical Mondays, we're taking a deep dive into the graduate medicine application. So I interviewed a friend of mine called Samah. She is a third year grad medic at Cambridge, and we had a really long and very niche conversation where we talked about all the aspects of the grad medicine application, all the way from what makes a good application to the kind of stuff you should be doing while you're doing your degree, to personal statements, entrance exams, how to prepare for the grad medicine interview. And we also answered a load of questions that you guys sent in via Instagram. So this is quite long, it's quite niche. It's hopefully going to be really useful for people applying to grad medicine. Also, timestamps to everything we're going to talk about is going to be linked in the video description. So you don't have to watch this whole video. You can just kind of skip along to the appropriate section, whatever you feel like. So yeah, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this conversation between me and Samah about the graduate medicine entry application. All right, Samah, so welcome to the YouTube channel. Thank you for coming on.
No worries.
So I was hoping we could just kind of take a chronological view of the whole grad entry medicine thing. Yeah. And then at the end, once we've talked about that, we'll do a few Q&As from Instagram and see what sort of questions people are asking about grad entry medicine.
Sounds great.
Wonderful. So at the start, so let's say you're in the process of doing your first degree, and then you decide you want to go for medicine, or you already decided prior to that you wanted to go for medicine, but you didn't get an offer and you ended up doing biomed or whatever. Yeah. I imagine people have different ways into it.
Definitely, yeah.
When do you first start thinking about applying to grad medicine?
As you said, like loads of people have already decided before they start their undergraduate degree that eventually I'm going to be doing medicine. And so they sort of go into their undergraduate degree with the mindset of, I need to be, during this time, doing really well, not just academically, so that I get the grades to go into medicine eventually, and also I'm building up my portfolio. So then people are doing like loads of societies, loads of extracurriculars, and loads of research and things in their spare time to make their application look great.
Okay, so grades, extracurriculars, and research. Are those things that most grad medicine applicants, successful applicants, will have?
I think the main sort of thing that grad medical applicants have in comparison to undergrads applicants is the research, because, you know, undergrads wouldn't, as at school, you wouldn't have that much opportunity to do proper research. Okay. So a lot of grads, when they're applying, they've possibly already got publications and things.
Okay, and is that like a requirement? Because what if people do like an English degree or something?
Yeah, it's definitely not a requirement. Definitely not a requirement. And depending on what university you're applying to, they sometimes are open to applying applicants of all backgrounds. So for example, when I was applying to Cambridge, they allowed anyone to apply. So you didn't have to be someone with a biosciences degree. But other universities are really prescriptive about what they want. So I've seen some university applications which are like, you need to send us a list of exactly what modules you took, because they need to match up to the content they expect you to have covered in your undergrad.
Okay, so it sounds like applying to grad entry is a lot more cumbersome than applying to undergrad, where you just rock up and decide where you want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot more research that needs to go into it, and you definitely need to be looking at different aspects, such as funding, such as, you know, who takes what sort of degrees, to how long the actual degree is, because some graduate entry medicine courses are not 4 years and they're 5 years, and that can affect funding and things. So you've got to really do your research.
I see. Okay, so let's say let's say I've applied to medicine undergrad, because at the age of 17 or whatever, I didn't get any offers, and now I'm doing biomedical sciences at, I don't know, UCL or somewhere random like that. And I know that further down the line, I want to apply to medicine. So am I aiming for first classes and everything? Like what are the sort of grade requirements? And would anyone still care about my A-level chemistry performance, for example?
Yes, so A-level chemistry makes a difference in a lot of places. So make sure you check whether that is a requirement, and sometimes they have a weird sort of time scale on it as well. They want you to have done A-level chemistry within the last 7 years or something. So if you took it before the 7 years, okay, you're going to have to redo it. Or more easier for you would probably be to apply somewhere else. In terms of the first part of your question, which was
like what sort of grades should I be aiming for in my university? Like, to what extent does it matter if I come top of the year or get a first class or get a 2-1?
So I think that's similar to A levels in the sense that the better you do, the more chance that you have of getting in. When you're applying for graduate medicine, if you're applying from your final year, so you haven't actually graduated yet, therefore you don't actually know what the degree classification is that you're going to get. You'll be predicted your degree classification by your tutor usually. Oh. So that would be what is used in your application for medicine. So ideally, you should be predicted a first class, because that is the thing that will help you get an interview. Because as I was going to say later on, the numbers are what matter in graduate medical applications, because there's such few places in the country for graduate medicine, the number of people applying per place is like almost double what are applying for undergraduate medicine. So it's much more competitive. And so in that sense, being predicted a first for your degree would definitely help you get a place for interview.
Okay.
But eventually it doesn't really matter, because most places only require you to have got a 2-1. But if you're predicted a 2-1, it's less likely that you'll get an interview. So you want to be predicted a first, but once you've got that place, usually their offer that they give you is you need to get a 2-1 in your degree.
Oh, okay. So you need to kind of negotiate with your tutors and be like, bro, like,
Give me a first.
yeah, at least predict me a first. And then if I get a 2-1, it doesn't matter, because by that point I've probably got my offer.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And what about kind of aiming for top of the year, stuff like that? Does that sort of stuff matter?
I mean, if you've got sort of prizes and things, that always stands you in good stead, but I don't think they particularly are, that is not a requirement anywhere.
Okay.
It's just sort of the same with A levels. Like if you came top of your year in, year 13 or whatever, it's not like a requirement on medical applications, but it just makes you look really good.
Okay. Fair enough. So grades are important. What about work experience? How does that come into the whole grad medicine thing?
Work experience is similar to when you're applying for undergraduate medicine. So it would be good for you to have a range. So do GP, do hospital. A lot of grads actually who haven't just come from a degree, so they've been doing other things like work and things. They actually work do things like healthcare assistant roles and things for like a whole year, which gives them so much experience already. And then it really looks good on an application as well. Okay. So if you have the time to do that, and if you're willing to do that for a whole year of your life, then yeah, things like that are great.
Awesome. And then what about extracurriculars? Do universities care if you're like, captain of your school university cricket team, whatever? Yeah,
again, similar to undergrad applications, if you have contributed well to university life, you're sort of like, you've got an edge on undergrads as an undergraduate applicants. I can't even speak. In the sense that you've sort of proven that you're tried and tested at university. You can handle university life, and you're not only able to handle university level work, but you can also contribute in a healthy way to university life and give back to the university and participate in the community.
Okay, fantastic. So at this point, I am a biomedical science applicant in my first year. I've watched this video, and therefore I know I've got to go for the grades. Yeah. I'm going to absolutely smash it out of the park in terms of my grades. I'm going to do some kind of research project, if I can, try and get a publication or two. I'm going to do some extracurricular activities, make sure I contribute to the wider corporate life of the university. Yeah. And then I get to my final year when I apply to grad medicine. And it sounds like I need to spend absolutely ages going on all the websites of all the different universities. It
doesn't really take that long. It took me about an afternoon.
Oh, okay.
I just sort of made a table on like an A4 page of, and I think there are actually already websites that sort of tabulate it for you. They've already got all the info. So they've got a list of like all the graduate medicine universities that offer the course. And then they've got like how many places they have, what entrance exam they require, that sort of thing. So it's sort of probably quite easy to get information already online.
Okay. So I've got to spend an afternoon just trying to work out which universities is it feasible for me to apply to. And then once I've got that short list, I can narrow it down. And you can apply to both Oxford and Cambridge.
Yes, so that's the one difference there, yeah.
Okay, interesting. Right, how do entrance exams work?
So there's 3 different entrance exams. Last time I checked, I don't know if things have changed, but when I was applying, there was BMAT, UKCAT, and GAMSAT. Okay. And I think, again, you should take that as a very strategic decision about whether, if for example, if you're applying in your final year, you've got to be juggling, your final year dissertation and all sorts of things like that, as well as doing your medical applications, which is a lot tougher than doing your A-levels, to be honest. So you've got to make that strategic decision about how many exams you're going to be prepping for and how many you're going to put in the effort for. So BMAT and UKCAT, sometimes if you're one of those people who did apply initially, didn't get in, and then you did something else and then decided to still go for medicine, you probably already got some kind of experience with either UKCAT or BMAT or both. So it's sometimes good to just stick with what you know. GAMSAT is another kettle of fish because it's a lot more effort. I think last time I checked, it was like a 6-hour exam or something, and it takes like a whole day to do as well. So it's a lot of effort, and I think a lot of prep has to go into it as well. So it's just about how much pressure you're willing to take on and how much you want to diversify your choices, I guess.
Right. Okay. So Do you know anything about the GAMSAT? Because I often get messages from people saying, "Oh, you run courses for the BMAT and UKCAT, 6med.co.uk. You can check them out." But like, I literally don't know anything about the GAMSAT at all. Like, so you say it's a 6-hour exam. Do you have any other information about it?
I know that it's quite heavy on sciences. So you've got to, I think, have a good knowledge of your biology, chemistry, physics. So yeah, it's quite heavy on the sort of scientific content. I think there is an essay as well, like an essay component. So yeah, it's just like a series of exams that you have to take. They give you breaks in between, but I don't know much more than that because I decided I wasn't going to do the GAMSAT and put in the effort, so I didn't do any research on it.
At this point, I'm the final year biomed applicant at UCL. I've got first in all of my exams. I've got some sick extracurriculars. I started a YouTube channel, become a magician on the side just to kind of boost my grad medicine application. And now I'm applying, and I apply through UCAS normally?
Yes, same thing as before.
And then personal statement-wise?
So personal statement-wise, you should... I mean, if we're talking about whether you've got to do it or not, yeah, it's the same.
Okay, but what makes like a legit personal statement for a grad?
For a grad, you've got to focus on the fact you're a grad. You've done an undergrad. You've got more experience than the kids are applying for. Than the kids that are applying for the undergraduate medicine. You've got an edge on them. You've got a lot more experience. So the thing that really stands out, I think, is one, if you've done extra research. So, for example, I did 3 lab internships, I think, in my undergrad during my summers and Christmas and things. So that was a lot of experience that I could talk about that I'm pretty sure that no 18-year-old would have. And secondly, you want to talk about societies and things that you've done at university, because that's sort of your, hey, I'm a proven university graduate. I've contributed to university life. I was president of XYZ. I was president of Fight Club, I think I was president of. Yeah, so it was a women's fitness society at King's.
Okay, would you be up for sharing your personal statement with the world?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. So we'll link it in the video description. So that'll be exciting. Cool. So I've got my application. My grade's absolutely sick. I've got a great personal statement that I've flowered on about why I want to do medicine and why kind of being a grad is like the best thing ever. Yeah. Now let's say I hear back and I get 3 offers for interview. What are the interviews like for grad medicine?
They sort of vary just the way that they do for undergrad. When I was applying for Cambridge, my Cambridge interview I thought would be, one of those scary college ones where you've got the academic one and the normal one. But actually it was an MMI. And I think a lot more universities are moving towards MMI just because I think it's fairer. And you've got the 11 or however many stations they decide to do. At Cambridge, it was 11 stations.
Okay, so some places use MMI, some places use standard interviews. Yeah. And I imagine it's fairly similar. Why do you want to be a doctor? What makes you legit to be a doctor?
Exactly. It's sort of like even split between, your reasons behind studying medicine, what your experiences have taught you, or why did your work experience make you want to become a doctor, or what did you learn from it? And, talking through ethical scenarios and those kinds of things.
Oh, so pretty standard medical interview stuff.
Yeah.
And there's just loads of videos on this YouTube channel that you can check out, which will be linked in the video description. I shouldn't be looking at the camera. Absolutely. Okay, so I've done my interviews and I get a few offers. Are those offers going to say conditional on getting a 2-1 in your degree?
Usually, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But let's say I did my degree 10 years ago and I've been working in journalism ever since.
You should get an unconditional then.
So I think that covers the general chronology. Is there anything we've missed out for grad that would be useful?
I think I was going to talk a little bit more about the strategics of applying. Yeah, okay. So just strategy. In terms of, strategy. Strategy is the important part, because this is something you don't really do as an 18-year-old applying for undergraduate medicine. You kind of go to open days and you have a flowery sort of feeling about the campus that you're at and oh yeah, I like the vibe here.
Okay, so what's the strategy for applying to grad?
The way that I did it is I looked at it just as a numbers game. So I looked at which universities offer the most places, first of all, because it's so variable. I think Warwick has the only course in the UK that just does graduate medicine, whereas most other places do undergrad as their main course and then offer a few places for graduate medicine. So I think I definitely applied to Warwick because they had something crazy, like nearly 100 places, which for graduate medicine is crazy. Most places offer between 20 to 40 places. So I applied to Warwick, and then I looked at how many places that they offer, how many people actually apply to those universities, and how many out of those that apply actually get given an interview. Once you've got through that lot of maths, then once you get to interview stage, how many out of the ones that were given an interview actually get a place. So I worked out that once I got through that whole initial maths bit for Cambridge, that if I had managed to get to interview stage, I then had to knock out 2 other people to get a place. So I went into there thinking, yeah, definitely that one, that one and that one. I've definitely done better than them.
Okay. So, and what do the stats look like for other universities?
It's very variable. So for Cambridge, actually, there's not as many people applying as you would think for graduate medicine. And I think that's probably to do with a bit of the prestige with applying to Cambridge. And it's like a bit scary and people just think, oh no, that's not for me. So the number of people actually applying to Cambridge is quite low in comparison to places like King's, where I went for my undergrad. So KCL has so many people applying. I think it's about 15 or 16 to 1 applicants to place.
Okay.
It's crazy.
Okay, so you kind of went down the playing the stats sort of route.
Absolutely.
And is that what you'd advocate for people that, you know, want to apply seriously to grad med?
I do, because I think that once you've got to a place where you've decided I'm applying for graduate medicine, you've obviously given it quite a lot of thought, because you're at a certain point in your life where you know what you want with your life. You know that you're like, I want to be a doctor. That's what I want to do with my life. So you need to then figure out the way that is going to get you a surefire way into doing it, basically reaching your goals. You don't really want to leave it too much up to chance. You want to give yourself the best chance possible.
Okay, awesome. So that sounds like a pretty good strategy. Were there any other tactics that you used that you can advise people to maybe try out?
There was. So just going back to the entrance exams thing, I sort of looked at the entrance exams and thought, what am I going to be spending my time doing? Because I want to do a balancing act between making sure I'm focused enough on my undergraduate degree to get the grades that I want, so not putting too much extra work on myself, but also giving myself an even spread of universities. So not putting all my eggs in one basket of only applying to UKCAT universities or only applying to BMAT universities. I sort of did a bit of both. So I think I had 2 UKCAT, 2 BMAT, and then I had Cambridge, who at the time when I was applying for graduate medicine, they didn't actually need you to do an entrance exam. So I had a good even split there.
Okay. Right, so I think that brings us to the end of our strategy discussion. Are there any other kind of general helpful tips before we move on to the Q&A?
Yeah, so I just wanted to touch a little bit on funding, because that's much more important when it comes to grad, because if you've got several options. The first option is you just apply as a grad to an undergraduate course, and those you're pretty much certain to get in because you've just got such more of an edge over the undergrads that are applying. So you're much more likely to get in on an undergraduate course. Okay. You're making your life so much easier if you do that. But the problem with that option is you don't get any funding because it's counted as your second degree. So if you have the money for it, go for it. And if you don't mind the extra year of doing the 5 years.
So you're saying if I'm an absolute baller, I don't need to bother applying for grad medicine. I can just apply for undergrad. Absolutely destroy those 17-year-olds who are applying. Because I've got sick grades. I'm reasonably mature, reasonably confident by this point. I've started my YouTube channel and I'm a magician on the side as well.
Absolutely.
So as long as I can pay up the $9,000 or whatever it costs each year, then I'm fine.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Absolutely.
But I imagine most people are not in that position where they can just fork out the 50K for a degree.
One, you don't want to be paying all that money when you could get paid to do it, plus do it in less years.
Fewer, I think you mean.
Fewer years. So sorry, Ali.
What do you mean get paid to do it?
So you get the NHS bursary.
Oh, so just in your final 2 years? Or
No, final 3 years.
Oh, 3 years.
So it's not even final, it's the second year, third year, fourth year. Wow. You get NHS bursary, and first year is all funded by student finance.
Oh, wait, okay. So there's big financial benefits to going for grad.
Massive. So when you're doing a 4-year graduate medicine course, you get the funding, you get student finance, you get NHS bursary, and if you go to Cambridge, you also get the Cambridge bursary, which is huge. So and I'm sure like other universities also have their own bursaries and things as well, which you should qualify for, especially if you're over 25, I think, which a lot of grads are when they're applying for medicine. So there's that option. You've got to be careful when you get to a bit of a grey area, because some graduate medicine courses have decided to increase the number of years of their course, which historically used to be 4 years, to 5 years. So when I was applying, Imperial had decided that they wanted to increase the 4-year course to 5 years, but that meant that NHS and student finance were looking at that as a second degree. Even though it was still called a graduate medicine degree, they decided that that didn't qualify for graduate funding.
Okay, so that may or may not have changed, but I suppose the point is, keep in mind this whole funding thing, because it is a big deal and you don't want to be ending up with a bill for like 15K, not realising it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually ended up not applying for Imperial at all because it was originally one of my first choices. And then I thought, no, I'm not doing that because I don't want to be in that much debt.
All right, so we talked a little bit about strategy and about kind of this finance stuff. Any final tips before we move on to Q&A?
Yeah, just a reminder that make sure that you're looking at whether the university is accepting all applicants. So if you're a person who's done an arts degree, humanities degree, anything other than a biosciences degree, make sure that the university actually accepts those degrees. And similarly, if you're a science grad, it's sort of something to hold into your head because obviously they're then possibly going to have a quota of places that they're filling with arts or non-science degrees. So you're going to have more competition, basically.
Okay, awesome.
There's going to be more people applying.
So we've done this half of the video, or I don't know how long this is going to end up being, but let's move on to the Q&A. So I asked on Instagram, this is one of the weird things about having a semi-big YouTube channel that people just kind of instantly respond when you ask questions. It's incredible. Anyway, I want to ask a question. Do you think you lose out on anything by being a grad medic rather than an undergrad medic? Do you think that you have a worse experience than I did as an undergrad being a grad?
Well, yeah, because it's the first couple of years, so particularly at Cambridge where you're doing first year, second year and fourth year in 2 years, it's very intense, very, very intense. So you're definitely putting a lot more pressure on yourself to perform and to get all of that done in a shorter amount of time. Whereas in undergrad, undergrads go off for their 5-week or 6-week holidays, however long it is, at Christmas, Easter, and they have these huge summers. You don't have all that time as a Cambridge graduate medical student. You have to, in the time that the undergrads are, swanning away for their holidays, you're going on 3 or 4 week placements and you have about a week off. So
the grad course is a lot more intense. Is that true of most universities, do you reckon?
I think so, because most other universities are combining first, second year of medicine into the first year. So I'm guessing it must be more intense.
Okay. And then what about from the social side of things? Do you suffer because you're 5 years older than everyone else?
I don't think so. I think that's dependent on your personality and how sociable you are. I don't think it's much to do with. I don't think I let age affect me. What do you think? We have the same friendship circle. I don't think I've missed it.
Okay, so let's move on into the Instagram Q&A. Okay. Question number 1 comes from Naira189. So what advice could you give for someone wishing to pursue graduate med with a chemical engineering degree, or, replace that with any non-life sciences degree?
First of all, do your research. So make sure that you're looking at applying to places that allow those sorts of degrees for the applicants. Second of all, use your degree to your advantage. You're going to be quite a unique applicant compared to all the people who do biomedical science, because there's thousands of those. Yeah. So you've got something different to offer. So definitely play to your strengths and use that difference to your advantage.
So in your personal statement being the fact I did chemical engineering means I'm so suited to medicine because blah, 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 and waffle something around. Yeah.
Exactly. You've probably got much more interesting things to talk about and capitalize on the transferable skills that you've picked up. And maybe you've done things like internships and things in your summers that have nothing to do with medicine and all to do with chemical engineering. And that's perfectly fine because you'll have learnt life skills and, things that you can transfer across to medicine in those.
Okay, so in a way, it's not necessarily a disadvantage provided you're applying to a university that doesn't require a life sciences degree. Yeah. Because I suppose if you're applying to something that does require a life sciences degree and you've got English lit, then you're just an idiot. What's his name? HX Riz or whatever. Reasons for post-grad med, why Cambridge and how Cambridge? That's very, very vague.
How Cambridge?
I suppose how did you apply to Cambridge? That's how did you get in? Anything funky you did for Cambridge?
I'm not going to lie. Cambridge was my 4th choice. Yeah. And I had no expectations about Cambridge whatsoever. I didn't do any research for Cambridge. Yeah. I had an open application, so I didn't know anything about colleges. I didn't research anything about colleges. I sort of put it down because I had a spare space on my application because I'd got rid of Imperial. And I didn't know what to put. And my tutor sort of was pressuring me to apply for Cambridge.
Fair enough. Cool. Okay. This is perfect timing, says Marcus Roy1. Applying to Cambridge GEM this year, do you have any tips for the healthcare/work experience form?
I think he's referring to the form where you've got to write down in chronological, it's sort of like a CV, and I treated it like a CV. So don't just put down, so where it says work experience, I sort of put all sorts of other things that I'd done as well. I didn't just put, I did GP placement from this date to this date and, hospital placement from this date to this date. I also put in, I've been, doing teaching and tutoring and, worked here and done this. And so sort of treat it more like a CV and try and fill that space as much as you can.
Okay, and is that a Cambridge specific thing? Or?
Yeah, so it's to do with the extra form that they give you to fill in after you've already done UCAS.
Here we go. Did you target your personal statement at your previous degree / post-qualification experience, or did you still include education prior to higher education?
Do they mean that did you talk about your A-levels?
And I suppose some people in their personal statements say, well, when I was studying A-level chemistry, I really enjoyed the fact that we do chemical reactions. And
I sort of don't, I don't advocate doing all of that.
I don't either.
I think it's a complete waste of space.
But like genuinely, it seems like some schools are telling their kids that you need to have a paragraph for each, like justifying your A-level choices.
No. Yeah. Hard pass. Don't do that. Because it's just a waste of space. And secondly, your academics, speak for themselves. So on your UCAS, you've already written down either what you've already achieved in your A-levels or what you've been predicted. And that's enough. That's all they need to know about your academics. So in my personal statements, in terms of my degree, all I talked about really were the extra research that I did on my own in my spare time. Not really my degree. But obviously I only could do that because I was doing a degree.
That makes sense. All right. So thank you, Lewis Tonner, for the question. Let's move on. Okay. What kind of degrees are suitable for grad medicine? I guess we've answered that, any depends on the uni.
And actually at Cambridge, when you apply and you all sort of are new graduate medics in your first year, they sort of say to you, historically, the people who had non-science backgrounds actually do better at medicine. They always come out better with their grades and results.
Okay, so Pagafight says, to what extent is grad medicine more competitive than applying for medicine in year 13?
Just the number of places. So they will have much fewer places available in the country and many more people applying. And also it's more competitive because you're not usually, well, not usually, but like there's a group of people who are applying straight from their undergrad. There'll also be people who've done masters and PhD. So obviously they do actually have a little bit of a cut above you, because they've got the extra qualifications and experience. And places like Warwick, I think, they give you an extra point in your application if you've got a PhD.
Okay, so you are in a way more of an advantage the older you are when you apply, because presumably you've got more experience to kind of back up your application. Are GCSE grades less important if you're applying to grad med? Does anyone care about your GCSE grades by that point?
I think so. No, I don't remember being asked about GCSEs. I remember being asked about my undergrad degree and A-level chemistry.
Okay, cool. So Julie Dabarnef or something says, how do I prepare for a post-grad interview?
So your prep is not going to be that much different from when you're applying as an undergrad. So they still look for the same skills and qualities of doctors that you would if you were applying as an undergrad. And what I did is I really just sort of completely absorbed Tomorrow's Doctors and Good Medical Practice by the BMJ.
You mean the GMC?
GMC, of course.
Absorbed it very well, evidently.
GMC's Good Medical Practice, because the concepts that they talk about in there are really what they're looking for, and what you're trying to sell to them, basically, that you've either already got the skills that they want Tomorrow's Doctors to have, or you've been working on developing them and you've got good knowledge about them and you know that they're important. So try and work those into your work experience, volunteering, extracurriculars, that kind of thing, into your answers, and especially also ethical scenarios. So when they ask you about, if patient came in and did this, what would you as the doctor, how would you react, or what would you prioritize? Like, you want to be using those concepts in your answers. Cool.
And then you can watch my videos about medical ethics if you want to find out more. Okay. Any other tips for preparing for interviews?
Yeah. So just in terms of mindset. So as I said, I didn't apply for Cambridge in the sense that I wasn't informed at all. I just put it down on my application, and I was very, very surprised when I was the first interview that I got. And I think they give out their interviews really early as well, like November or something. So I didn't feel prepared, and I felt quite scared and worried about it, and intimidated as well by the fact that it's Cambridge, and it was a 2-hour drive from London to Cambridge. And I remember that my mum was sort of getting me to practice questions with her and things along the way, and as I was answering them, she was sort of like, wow, you sound really scared and you can't even speak properly to me, and I'm your mum. How are you going to be when you go there? And then she sort of psyched me up the entire way, to the point where I actually, when I got out, I was sort of bouncing from station to station in the MMI, and I had so much energy. And she was sort of like, treat this as a game, and treat it as something fun that you're doing, because you're not someone who's making up the fact that they want to do medicine. You actually really do want to do medicine. This is genuine, and that genuineness and your enthusiasm will come across because it's something you genuinely feel. And the other thing that she sort of said to me was, just feel like you're going in there and you've already got this. You've got this. If you feel like you've got this, that will come across in the way that you speak and act, and your interactions with people. You come across like you're meant to already be there. And I found that mindset has helped me in most interviews that I've done, and I find that it helps me like pass interviews quite easily, because if I go in there thinking I've already got this, I think it helps you with your manners straight away.
Yeah. Mate, that's actually really good, really profound advice. I was a bit like, because like when you first said mindset, I was thinking, like, oh, this is going to be some
a winning mindset. You need to think, I've got this. Yeah. I've already got this. Okay. And I was meant to be here. I'm meant to have this.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think this is great advice, not just for interviews, but also for life in general. Yeah. That's kind of, yeah, being confident about this sort of stuff. Love it. Okay. So this person also asks, how can I make my application unique, in inverted commas?
It depends on your background. So if you've done a different degree, like if you've not done a biosciences degree, or you've worked for a while, doing, some people come from consulting or teaching or anything. They've done all sorts of different things. Your background is often quite unique. And I think just within my cohort, so there's 23 or something of us at Cambridge in my year, we're all so different. There's usually going to be something, because you've just got more life experience. You've probably done stuff that other people haven't. So you're probably already quite unique. To make your applications unique, I don't really know. I mean, I guess you could say that to undergrads as well. Ali did magic. That made him quite unique.
Why are you talking about me in the third person?
I'm just thinking about that. Because I'm talking to the person who answered the question.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, no, that makes sense. I apologize for questioning you on that. Okay. On that, very clever.
I think that's quite a generic question. I don't think it's very specific to grads. So I think you could do anything to make yourself unique.
Awesome. So that brings us to the end of the questions. Sure. A few people did ask questions kind of in advance of this. Like some guy sent a list of like 10 questions, but I totally forgot to screenshot it and I forgot to save it. And because I'm such a popular guy these days, I just have hundreds of Instagram messages. So I can't find his list of 10 questions. So apologies to that guy, whoever it was.
So this is more an exercise of, I'm so popular. I'm a YouTuber.
I just have to sprinkle that into every single thing I do these days. Yeah. Okay. So I think that brings us to the end of the conversation. Any final remarks?
A couple of things I wanted to say. One, it's quite easy to feel intimidated by other grads, because if you're someone who's done a BSc like I have and haven't done, a master's and a PhD, and you come across these people applying and you feel like, oh my gosh, like they've got so much more, qualifications, so much more experience than I do. And it's easy to feel quite intimidated by them and get like a sort of imposter syndrome, especially when you're at Cambridge. Don't feel that way, because you've got to where you are for a reason. And if you all get onto the same course, then you're sort of starting. Once you, I think, get to interview stage, you're sort of on an even keel with everyone. Then it's more your performance at the interview that counts, and what happens from there on in. In terms of being at university, I think you should really relish the fact that you're a student again, because a lot of people our age are now, adulting, on the grind, like they have responsibilities and bills to pay. Exactly. Whereas we're now students again, and that's a rare opportunity, and I think you should definitely enjoy yourself and enjoy this time that you've got.
Yeah, I'm kind of jealous. I kind of want to do a second degree, a third degree rather, just for fun. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on the channel, on the podcast, wherever people are hearing this. Cool. So we'll leave your contact details, or we'll leave links to your Instagram at least in the description, and then people can message you, and if you want, you can reply to them. And we'll put a link to your personal statement in there. And hopefully people have found this useful. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
No worries.
All right. See you later.
Thanks. Bye.